New details have emerged about rocker Ozzy Osbourne's final days following his death at age 76. Reilly Sullivan is a lifestyle reporter here at skynews.com.au and he's always across the latest celebrity headlines. Reilly, great to see you.
Great to be back.
So Ozzy Osbourne's wife Sharon and their family have opened up about Ozzy Osbourne's passing. What's been said?
Yeah, such sad news. The death of Ozzy Osbourne, legendary rocker, Black Sabbath frontman. As you said, he just performed for the final time weeks ago. He had a farewell concert that was supported by Metallica and Guns N' Roses and all these other sort of legends. And I think it was really a send-off that he wanted. I kind of think about, what Frank Sinatra used to say, my way. I think Ozzy Osbourne lived his life his way. It was a hard life at times. He came from very humble beginnings, very hard rock and roll lifestyle, problems with drugs. And then later in his life, I think he really found happiness, for his wife Sharon and their 3 children, absolute tragedy. The families said in a statement that he was surrounded by love and that he died definitely, surrounded with their support. And I think it's sad, especially I think of his wife Sharon, their showbiz marriage, I think in Hollywood and in entertainment, one of the longest running marriages. They were married in the early 80s, married until his death. Very, very sad news. But, I think it was a very touching sort of symbol to know that he was able to have a farewell and he was able to perform one final time, perhaps knowing. It's interesting to point out that the family hasn't disclosed a cause of death. I think it is a public knowledge that he was suffering with Parkinson's and he had other health problems. But in terms of a cause of death, nothing has been revealed. But definitely seems like there was a sign or there was perhaps final months and weeks and definitely he did it on his terms.
Okay, well, an insider at streaming giant Netflix has claimed that the Sussexes' $100 million content partnership, I should say, is on the chopping block. Do you think this could be a sign or the end of Harry and Meghan's relationship with Netflix?
Right. I think we can quite confidently say at this point, the deal's over. So that initial 5-year contract, the $100 million legendary partnership, is all but done. That is expiring within the next few months, and it's understood that Netflix will not be renewing that. They will be transitioning the Sussexes onto a new type of partnership called a first look deal. A first look deal is essentially, it's very popular in the entertainment industry. It basically says, all right, if you've got a project in the works or a TV show or something you want to make into a movie, we get first sort of run at it. And that means that Netflix can pass on it. If they're interested in it, they could say, all right, you have to sort of take it to us first. I think that this is a sign that they don't really see too much value in the Sussexes. The numbers have been dismal. Of course, With Love, Meghan is coming back, but there was some streaming data that came out recently that revealed that show was barely in the top 400 shows on Netflix. And actually, this was quite a sort of poetic sign. Meghan's sort of former show Suits, reruns of Suits, are actually more popular on Netflix than her own show.
That does not surprise me.
Right. So there's a sort of, there's a lot of, I don't want to say schadenfreude, but definitely I think the ego would be a bit bruised. The other one, of course, was Polo. Remember that flop Harry put out, Polo? I mean, that show just disappeared without a trace.
Didn't it?
Right. So I think from Netflix's point of view, look, they got the big thing. They got the docu-series that came out a couple of years ago that had a lot of revelations, did a lot of damage, and was very popular. So I think that from their point of view, they can say, look, we got the big scoop. But I mean, in 2025, I think we're done with the Sussexes.
Yeah, I think we are. Look, and a Sussex insider has claimed that Prince Harry is prepared to reconcile with King Charles, even without the support of Meghan Markle. So what's the latest on this proposed peace summit?
Right. I think this is a really crucial detail that's come out this week. An insider has said that Harry is sort of continuing negotiations and discussions and that they don't necessarily include his wife. That's not to sort of spark any speculation about their marriage. I think their marriage is strong, but I think that Harry has understood that his family may never accept Meghan Markle. I think that, just the timeline of events has just been so catastrophic in terms of the institution, but also on a personal level. Things that have been said, especially by Meghan, but also by Harry, have done great personal and reputational damage to Charles, also to William and Kate. And I think from their point of view, they're always going to be on guard. I think any type of peace summit, if it ever does happen, I don't think it would be, they could never really let him back in. How could you? This is the person just as a reminder, in these interviews, there were allegations of racism by an unnamed royal. It was later alleged that the unnamed royals were Kate and Charles. That was never confirmed. The Sussexes denied that, but it was in that Omid Scobie book.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely, very, very defamatory, reputation, sort of decimating kind of allegations. And of course, after something like that, how could you trust them again? I don't think they'll ever trust Harry and Meghan again. But I do think that Harry could, sort of have a heart-to-heart with his father. I do believe that is a possibility. But in terms of, Meghan coming back in, I think she's happy where she is. I think that she, from her point of view, I don't think she's interested in reconciling with them either. So it sounds like everything's sort of moving along as it should. Harry is open to it. From a family point of view, it is his father. But Meghan is happy to just sort of let him go off and do that.
Yeah, she's fine. She's got her Instagram back up and running.
Right.
And she's doing her own thing.
Doing wines now.
Oh, goodness. Now, there's speculation that Princess Beatrice could become a working royal. That has gone into overdrive after the royal took on a new role, once filled by her grandfather, Prince Philip. What do we know about this, about Beatrice's new gig? And is this a sign that she'll be taking on more duties?
Well, I think that this is another sort of significant sign. This was a patronage she's taken on that was once Prince Philip's. Of course, Prince Philip was working royal as the wife of the late, great Queen Elizabeth. And this is, I do think it's a sign. I think that they are slowly giving Beatrice more responsibilities. She does have limited responsibilities. She is a counsellor of state for Charles. She's never actually been forced to step in for that role. But in theory, on paper, if there was ever an emergency and the monarch was incapacitated or everyone down the line, she would be called upon. So I think she's always been on standby. Another detail that's come out recently, which I found really telling, was her husband, Eduardo. He did an interview and revealed that they are largely living at St James's Palace. So we know that Beatrice does have a grace and favour home that King Charles, her uncle, pays for inside St James's Palace in central London, and it's now been revealed that they do live there. There was sort of reports that they were living more in the Cotswolds and that they weren't that much in the sort of the centre of royal life in the palace. But I think the revelation that she's taking on more duties and that she's also living back at St James nearly full time, I do think it's a sign that she could become a working royal.
Reilly Sullivan, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thank you.